You want to know how this whole goddamn mess started the fence? That's right, a fucking fence. You believe that 3 inches too far west and suddenly I'm public enemy number one in the HOA newsletter. Jesus Christ. Clara wanted the damn thing. Said it'd frame the roses real nice. She had this way of saying shit that made even busted lawn chairs sound like museum pieces. So I built the fence. Bled all over it. Still got the scar from where I damn near drilled through my own thumb. It was straight, it was solid, it was ours. And now it's non-compliant. Hell, you should have seen the look on my face when that notice showed up folded like a fucking takeout menu, taped crooked to my mailbox with a cheap-ass piece of scotch tape like they couldn't even afford a goddamn staple. Violation 17.4b Visual Uniformity Breach. Fuck off. Next day, I'm out back watering Clara's tomatoes because that's all I've got left of her that still grows. And here comes this black SUV with no plates, like straight out of a low-budget Netflix thriller. 3 guys hop out, all puffed up like they're about to raid a meth lab. Matching shirts, mismatched pants, and one of them's got a badge that looks like it came out of a cereal box. No, I'm serious. Fucking cereal box. The lead guy's sunglasses, buzz-cut attitude walks up like he owns the place and starts talking about enforcing HOA compliance. Sir, we're here to address violations. Violations, my ass, I said. You boys cops. We're private enforcement contractors assigned by so... No, you ain't cops. You're just 3 dumb sons of bitches with walkie-talkies and borrowed balls. That shut him up for a sec. I could see it in his eyes, buzzcut. He thought I was going to roll over. Thought I'd back down like most folks around here do when Margot Haynes starts flapping her goddamn clipboard. But, nah. I've buried tougher men than this under closing arguments. So I took out my phone, started recording, asked for IDs. Real ones. None of this tin badge cosplay bullshit. They got nervous. Good. Means they knew they'd fucked up. You've got 60 seconds to get off my property. I said before I call the sheriff, the news, and whoever the hell's in charge of Dumbass Security, LLC. They left. Of course they left. Didn't even shut the gate behind them. Pussies. And up the road, peeking out her window like she's in a soap opera, there's Margot Haynes, HOA president, part-time tyrant. Full-time pain in my goddamn ass. Probably already drafting up a fresh bullshit fine notice. Well, let her. I didn't sleep that night. Hell, I didn't even try. Just sat out on the back porch with a warm beer and colder thoughts, staring at that goddamn fence like it owed me money. The crickets didn't even bother singing. Maybe they knew something was coming. Maybe I did too. Around 2 a.m., I walked the property line with a flashlight in one hand and Clara's old 38 in the other. Not because I expected those jackasses to come back, but because I wanted them to. I was itching, not for a fight, for clarity. For something that made sense in a world where a fucking garden fence could trigger a suburban coup. By morning, I had a plan. Step 1, paper trail. I dug up every letter, email, fine notice, and HOA newsletter I had from the last 5 years. Spread them across the kitchen table like crime scene photos. Jesus. I'd ignored half this shit when Clara was alive, figured she'd keep them in order. She did. But now they read like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale written by psychos. Violation here, citation there, yard aesthetic deviation, excessive seasonal display. One even flagged me for a flag. A goddamn American flag. Apparently it was too large. I laughed so hard I choked on my coffee. Step 2. Find out who the hell authorized 3 goons to come storming into my yard like I was cooking meth behind the shed. I called the HOA office. Nobody picked up. I emailed. Auto reply. I texted Margot. She replied with a thumbs up emoji. A fucking emoji. That's when I knew this wasn't just about the fence, or aesthetics, or compliance. This was personal, or worse, strategic. Margot was testing me, testing if the old man on Magnolia Lane would bark or bite. She wanted the land, and I had a real nasty feeling she wasn't working alone. So I drove to the county clerk's office. The real one. Government building, dusty floors, angry receptionist. I've known the clerk there, Janice, for 30 damn years. She once dated my cousin, the one who couldn't spell mortgage if you spotted him the first 6 letters. Ray, she said, looking up from her desk like I'd just risen from the grave. You die and come back for property records or what? Both, I said. Someone's trying to push me off my land, and I think they're using the HOA as cover. Janice didn't blink. That bitch Margot, again, God bless small towns. She pulled the records, and guess what? Turns out the HOA charter was amended 6 months ago, right after Clara passed to allow external enforcement contractors to ensure visual integrity in legacy lots with non-standard structures. I own one of exactly 3 such lots. The other 2 sold last month. Suddenly, this shit made sense. This wasn't about fences. It was about forcing holdouts off their land. On the way home, I stopped by the old feed store where Hank still ran his security side hustle. Hank's been around longer than most of the damn houses in Shadow Pines. Used to run private gigs for the oil companies before they all went corporate and stopped paying in cash. Now he mostly sells deer cameras and gives unsolicited opinions about the government. 3 guys, black SUV, no plates. He asked, chewing on a toothpick like it owed him rent. Shit, Ray. That sounds like Eagle Force. Eagle? What now? Eagle Force Security. Bunch of weekend warriors with shaved heads and small dicks. Margot hired him for the fall festival last year, kicked out a 10-year-old for having glitter in her hair. Said it violated sanitation protocol. I just stared at him. I swear to God, he said, you can't make this shit up. Bingo. I had a name. Eagle Force Security. Didn't sound like much, but I knew how these things worked. A fake company registered in Delaware, a P.O. box in some strip mall, and a website full of stolen stock photos of guys in aviators with earpieces looking serious about nothing. I pulled out my phone, Googled them. Yep. Exactly what I thought. Page 1 of search results looked like it was written by a freshman business major on Adderall. Mission statements, tactical values. Community stabilization protocol. One link took me to their enforcement log. Guess who was listed as client number 4 Shadow Pines HOA? I almost dropped the damn phone. That night, I made a list. I do that when I'm pissed. Clara used to call it prosecutor mode. I poured a glass of bourbon, sat at the kitchen table, and started scribbling like a man drawing battle lines. People I trust. Leela runs the cafe, hates Margot more than potholes. Hank armed and nosy. Janice already in deep people. I don't, everyone else. Targets. Margot fucking Haynes. Eagle Force. Whoever's buying up land around here. I didn't sleep again. At 3:42 a.m., I found a used drone in Hank's clearance pile. Hooked it up, flew it over Margot's house just to see what the Queen was doing at night. Nothing suspicious unless you count the fact she's got 3 security cameras pointing toward my house. One even zoomed in when the drone got close. I smiled. Bitch just confirmed she's scared? The next morning, I sat down and started drafting a little welcome letter to Eagle Force Security. Polite. Legal. Razor sharp. To whom it may concern, I am Ray Coleman, current resident of 124 Magnolia Lane. I am a retired prosecutor with 30 years' experience in criminal law, including multiple cases involving unlawful private enforcement activity. I have documented your unauthorized presence on my property, including attempted impersonation of law enforcement. Footage is time-stamped and geotagged. You have 48 hours to issue a written statement clarifying your actions, or I will pursue charges under both state and federal statutes, including but not limited to list of terrifying legal codes. I signed it with the same pen Clara used to sign our mortgage. Poetic as fuck. Then I printed 5 copies. One for Eagle Force. One for Margot. One for the sheriff. One for the press just in case. And one for me to frame after this is over. Because I wasn't just fighting a HOA fine anymore. I was going to burn their whole goddamn playbook to the ground. I mailed the letters out just before dawn, sheriff's copy hand-delivered with a donut, and enough side-eye to make him choke. He said he'd look into it, which is sheriff speak. For, if it gets messy enough, maybe I'll pretend I saw something. No surprise there. Around here, folks don't pick sides until someone's bleeding. By noon, I got my answer. Not from the sheriff, not from Eagle Force, from Facebook. More specifically, the Shadow Pines HOA Community Updates page, aka Margot's personal propaganda sewer. There it was in bold caps right under a stock photo of a smiling neighborhood concerned citizens. Report hostile behavior from local resident. We regret to inform residents that a pattern of aggressive conduct, including verbal threats, property violations, and potential weapons possession, has been observed at 124 Magnolia Lane. Our priority remains community safety. I nearly choked on my goddamn sandwich. And of course, she included a blurry photo, me standing in my driveway, phone in one hand, other hand mid-gesture like I'm casting a spell. Taken right after I told the rent-a-cops to go play mall security somewhere else. Out of context, I looked like a lunatic who just discovered 5G. Then the comments started rolling in. I've always thought he looked unstable. Didn't his wife die? Maybe he's not coping well. That fence does look a bit hostile. We need to think about our children. God bless the suburbs where thinking about our children is code for get rid of the weird old guy who doesn't use Pinterest. That night, Leela slid into my booth at her cafe like a bartender in a spy movie. You seen it yet? She asked, laptop already open. If you mean the HOA hit piece, yeah. That shit show popped up faster than herpes in a frat house. It's worse than you think. She spun the screen. Turns out Margot didn't just post, she ran a targeted ad campaign, boosted it to everyone in a 5-mile radius with HOA keywords. Even tagged community concern and elder mental health. That last one. That lit a fire under my ass. Because that was Clara's fight. She spent years doing outreach for seniors who got railroaded by HOAs, banks, and compliance consultants. She would have lost her damn mind if she saw me getting branded a danger to the neighborhood just because I wouldn't repaint my damn mailbox Tuscan beige. And here's the thing, I could have taken it. Could have ignored it. Swallowed my pride like bitter medicine and let it blow over. But then I saw one comment that changed everything. Honestly, he's probably got weapons in that shed. Shouldn't someone call the sheriff? Someone did. Next morning, 2 patrol cars idled outside my driveway. Didn't knock, didn't say hello. Just sat there, watching. First thing I did was brew a pot of Clara's strong as sin coffee, the kind that could strip paint off a barn door and open my laptop like it was a goddamn sword. I wasn't just going to write a post, I was going to write a goddamn testimony. Caption about that fence. Photo me. In front of said fence. Big ol' grin. Middle finger pixelated just enough to keep Facebook's panties untwisted. Then I started typing. Since the HOA seems so concerned about community awareness, here's some background. Yes, my fence is 3 inches off. Know why? Because Clara, my wife, may she rest in well-deserved peace, marked it that way by hand before she got sick. And I'm not moving it. Period. 3 armed men trespassed on my land last week. They wore fake badges, screamed threats, and backed down when I asked for real ID. I have video. So does the sheriff. If protecting a tomato patch gets me labeled a threat to the community, maybe the problem isn't me. Also, quick legal note, impersonating law enforcement is a felony in Texas. Just ask Eagle Force Security, who haven't returned my letter yet. Peace, love, and proper fence lines, Ray C. I didn't expect much. But the post took off like a dog spotting a squirrel on cocaine. Dozens of shares, then hundreds. Leela reposted it with, "Don't poke the bear unless you want a claw to the face." One guy, a vet who got fined for painting his garage door blue instead of cloud gray, commented, "This HOA's been rotten since Margot got the crown. Time we pulled the damn weeds." Another said they fined me for having a garden gnome. A fucking gnome. By noon, I was getting DMs from neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years. Turns out I wasn't the only one they'd come for. A single mom fined $500 for unapproved Halloween decor, aka 2 pumpkins and a plastic bat. A retired teacher cited for excessive wind chimes. One guy got written up for having his trash can out 8 minutes early. I shit you, not 8 goddamn minutes. Shadow Pines was full of bruises. Mine just happened to bleed loud enough to wake everyone up. So I made a new list. People to talk to. The vet with the garage door. Gnome guy. Wind chime lady. Next move. Host a neighborhood coffee and clarification meetup at Leela's Cafe. Real casual, no signs, no flyers, just folks who wanted to say, you too. Yeah, me too. Meanwhile, Margot doubled down. She posted a rebuttal that read like it was written by a PR firm on Xanax. The HOA remains committed to community harmony and regrets that certain individuals have chosen to weaponize social media. Weaponized lady. I'm a retired prosecutor. Social media is the tamest weapon I've ever held. Try cross-examining a cartel hitman in open court. This is light cardio. That night, I walked past the fence again. Ran my fingers along the wood Clara had stained herself. I smiled because I wasn't alone anymore. And tomorrow, I was going to turn that fence, the one they hated so much, into a goddamn banner. The meeting at Leela's Cafe wasn't fancy. No name tags, no RSVP, no free muffins. Just coffee, burn your throat strong, and a dozen tired-ass neighbors with one thing in common. They'd all been hit by the HOA hammer. Old Mrs. Klinger came with a folder thicker than a phone book. These are all my finds, she said. Voice like gravel. Since 2019, trash cans, wind chimes, a seasonal wreath that was apparently too secular. One guy pulled out a printout of his own yard from Google Maps. They mailed me a violation using this. I hadn't even mowed yet. It was raining. Another neighbor, Latino ex-military, spoke up for the first time. They told me my truck made the neighborhood look low income. Silence. Then son of a bitch, I muttered. It's not just harassment, it's targeting. We started connecting dots, dates, names, property sales. Turns out every person fined hardest in the last 18 months lived on a certain east-facing block, or owned corner lots, or interestingly had homes backing up to an empty field Margot once called an eyesore. She's trying to clear us out, I said. Piece by piece. Leela nodded. Make it look like normal attrition, then sell the lots to her developer buddies for cheap. And then someone said something that flipped the goddamn table metaphorically, but barely. There's a new HOA committee, said Roger from Oakwood Drive. Compliance Expansion Board. Just 3 members. They get to fast-track enforcement votes. Who's on it, Margot, obviously. Her cousin. And some guy named Rick Vaughn. Rick, who real estate attorney. Just moved here. Never met him. But he sure signs a lot of letters. I pulled out my phone. Googled Rick Vaughn Shadow Pines. First result, board member, Shadow Pines HOA. Second, legal rep for Southern Horizon Developments. Click. Boom. Same company that bought 3 properties last quarter on our street. And just like that, the game changed. This wasn't just power-tripping bullshit anymore. This was a land grab. Margot was running a play fine. The right people make them uncomfortable, drown them in bureaucracy, then swoop in and buy low. She'd weaponized the HOA to flip the whole damn neighborhood like a foreclosure buffet. How do you want to handle this? Leela asked me, eyes sharp. I looked out the window. Rain was coming in. One of those slow, heavy Texas rains that didn't wash things away, just soaked everything until it buckled. We do it the old way, I said. Surveillance, documents, pressure. And when the moment's right, we shove the whole damn thing into the sun. That night, I went home and opened Clara's old writing desk. Inside where she used to keep stamps and postcards, I found the notebook she always used when shit got real. On the front cover in her handwriting, if they want a war, make sure they regret asking. So I started writing names, connections, dates, patterns, and right at the top of the page I wrote one word in all caps Rico. First rule of war, never start one unless you've already mapped the exit. That's what Clara used to say. Usually about dinner with her sister, but hell, truth's truth. And this wasn't dinner. This was a quiet war. Margot's play was elegant in the nastiest way. Fines, discomfort, isolation, cheap offers, purchase, gentrify, profit. I'd seen drug cartels do the same thing with farmland. Only difference was Margot wore a blouse from Kohl's and smiled while she gutted you. So we needed a lever, something sharp, something legal but dirty, and we had one name. Rick Vaughn, lawyer, new face, HOA board member, real estate specialist with one foot in Margot's yard and the other in a developer's office. I wanted to know which foot was dirtier. Leela made the call. She didn't introduce herself, just asked if Rick would be open to consulting on a potential property transfer. Said her uncle was looking to offload land discreetly, not quite HOA compliant, and might be open to friendly terms. He took the bait like a fat bass on a shiny hook. Happy to discuss options, he said. Cash offers are always easier to process. We set the meeting for 10 a.m. at Leela's cafe. She swapped her apron for a turtleneck and glasses. I wore a cap, sunglasses, and the meanest scowl I could muster. Rick showed up 10 minutes late with a grin that could sell snake oil to a Baptist. Appreciate the opportunity, he said, sliding into the booth like it owed him rent. Always glad to help locals navigate property hurdles. Even if the hurdles are, say, policy violations, Leela asked. Everything's negotiable, he said with a wink, especially with the right compliance support. That's when I leaned forward. Ray Coleman. I'm not her uncle. He blinked. Oh, relax, Rick. I'm just a retiree with a tomato patch. And a fence. And video of 3 fake cops trespassing on my land. And an interest in how the hell you keep showing up on both HOA letters and developer contracts. He tried to smile. It twitched. Look, I just do legal consulting. There's nothing, coordinated. Sure there is, I said, and I'm not here to stop it. I'm here to make it visible. You know the difference. Not sure I follow. Visibility kills dirty deals, Rick. Sunlight ain't just for plants. He left fast. Didn't finish his latte. Didn't notice the tiny recorder under the sugar jar. Leela smiled. He talked smooth for a man stepping on a rake. That night, I called Hank. Asked for a favor. How illegal do you want it, he asked. Legal, I said, but close enough to smell the line. Now you're speaking my language. I didn't sleep that night again. That made 5 in a row. I was starting to feel like a raccoon in a courtroom. But sleep's for people who aren't being financially stalked by their neighborhood association. I spent the night building a map, not on paper, in my head. Every HOA fine, every sale, every property that flipped for less than it was worth. I connected names, addresses, tax records, transfer timings. It wasn't a conspiracy theory, it was a fucking spreadsheet of theft. By 5 a.m. I had my targets. Southern Horizon Developments, the Land Grabbers, Rick Vaughn, Margot's Legal Attack, Dog, Haynes Community Trust Surprise-a Holding Account, in Margot's name masked as Community Preservation Fund. And I had a tooled Texas Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, not sexy but deadly when aimed right. Most people don't realize the law has fangs. They think it's all courtrooms and suits. But if you know where to dig, you can bleed a shark without ever stepping in the water. I drafted the letters with care. 3 pages each, no threats, no accusations. Just precise questions written in the tone of someone who knows the answers already. Please clarify the origin and routing of funds used in the acquisition of Parcel 11B. Confirm the date your firm became aware of Mr. Vaughn's dual representation capacity. Advise on whether your internal compliance review has flagged any enforcement to purchase timelines under 60 days. I didn't sign them as Ray Coleman retired. I signed them as Raymond J. Coleman, former prosecutor, state of Texas. You don't knock on the front door when you're going after cockroaches. You turn on the damn lights. Hank delivered the letters in person, said it'd add flavor. He wore his old security jacket, the one with a patch that says Asset Protection. Didn't tell anyone it was from 1998 and used to guard strip malls. They didn't need to know. All they needed to see was a big dude with a clipboard and resting murder face. By noon, I got my first bite. An anonymous number texted, We should talk. You're right about the trust. Margot's not working alone. She's got backing. Real estate group from out of state. They call it a revitalization initiative. We call it forced migration. No name, no signature, but the message ended with a former board member. I called Leela. Get me everyone you know who's left the HOA board in the last 3 years. That's a list of people who either moved or disappeared, she said. Exactly. Let's find the ones still breathing. That night, someone left a package on my porch. No return address, no postage, just a manila envelope with a sticky note in case something happens to me. Inside, meeting minutes not listed in public. HOA records, expense log showing payments to Eagle Force 6 weeks before the fence incident. And most damning of all, an internal memo marked accelerated acquisition targets, Phase 2. My address was circled. I didn't send the documents to the sheriff. Didn't send them to a lawyer either. I sent them to a blogger. Not just any blogger, Tasha Denton, founder of Pine Watch, a local site known for breaking stories like school board chair caught drunk at PTA bake sale. She had teeth, and she bit hard. Leela had her number. Tell her it's HOA related, I said, and tell her it's about land money and buried votes. She'll show up in 20 minutes, Leela said. In flip-flops and fury. She showed up in 15. Didn't even sit down before asking, how illegal are we talking here? Mildly unethical or jail time with matching jumpsuits? Somewhere between oops and Rico, I said, handing her the envelope. She flipped through the paper's eyebrows rising like gas prices. Jesus, this is coordinated. This is systemic. This is sexy. Please never say that again, I muttered. By nightfall, Pine Watch dropped the first article, Shadow Pines HOA accused of backroom deals. Land grabs documents obtained by Pine Watch suggest multiple properties were cited, pressured, and sold under questionable circumstances. Residents allege a coordinated campaign involving fines, misinformation, and private security intimidation. It went viral, at least for a town where viral means 83 shares and someone's grandma calling in from Florida. And just like that, the gloves came off. Margot wasn't smiling anymore. She didn't post a rebuttal. She filed a restraining order. Against me. Sheriff Tom showed up himself, hat in hand, eyes apologetic. Ray, I know this is horse shit, but a judge signed it. Says you can't be within 100 feet of Margot, her property, or any HOA meeting. So she gets to weaponize court orders now. Afraid so? How close can I get to her mailbox, Ray? Kidding, mostly. Restraining order in hand, I sat on my porch and watched the sun go down behind my crooked, perfect fence. And I realized something important. She was scared. This was panic, not power. You don't go nuclear unless you smell smoke. Next morning, I found a note shoved under my door. No envelope. Just folded, handwritten in blocky caps. They're deleting records. Tuesday night, storage unit behind the pool, come alone, wear gloves, no phones, tell no one. This doesn't end where you think, Emmy. And just like that, my quiet war got loud. I almost didn't go. That note, it stank of a setup. Classic bait, come alone. No phones. Wear gloves. What's next? A fucking black bag over the head. But I went anyway. Why? Because I needed to know just how deep this shit went. And because deep down part of me wanted to catch someone red-handed and slam them against the wall with the truth. Also, I had the gloves already. Tuesday night, 11:47 p.m. Moonlight bouncing off the hood of my truck like a goddamn spotlight. I parked 3 blocks away and walked in through the side trails behind the pool. The storage unit sat squat and silent behind a hedge of dead hedges and HOA-approved decorative gravel. Padlock cut, door slightly ajar. Great, this was going to go well. Inside, dark, musty, hotter than Satan's closet. I kept my flashlight low. No beam, just bounce light. Boxes, stacks of them. Labeled things like Compliance 2023, Temp Hold. SHD phase schedules. Opt-outs, settlement drafts. The hell is an opt-out? I opened a folder, scanned documents. Holy shit. They had scripts, literal scripts. If resident resists, proceed with language in version B3. You're not being targeted, sir. Everyone has to follow the rules. If threatened with legal action, escalate to, we're just following what the board approved. Never reference actual law. This wasn't just HOA enforcement. This was corporate-grade psychological ops. I dug deeper. Found buyout offers, cash offers to residents days after fines hit. Lowball as hell. All signed by someone named Derek Lang, acquisition specialist. Name rang no bells, but then I saw the logo Southern Horizon Developments. And right there next to it, a watermark I hadn't seen before, Clearview Capital Partners. New York address. Shit just went national. I grabbed what I could. 3 folders, photos of the rest. As I turned to leave, I heard it. Crunch, gravel outside. Shit. Footsteps, slow, heavy, no voices, just boots. I moved to the back, found a maintenance door half off its hinges. Slid through just as the main unit door creaked open behind me. Didn't look back. Didn't breathe until I hit the street and ducked behind a mailbox like I was 20 again. Made it home at 1:23 a.m. Hands shaking, mouth dry. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. Tasha called at dawn. Ray, did you break into an HOA unit last night? Nope. Just went for a walk. Because someone sent me these photos anonymously. And if this is real, you've got a story that's going to set this town on fire. She was right. I wasn't fighting Margot anymore. I was fighting the machine behind her. And now I had the match. Tasha dropped the bombshell at 8:12 a.m. sharp. Front page on Pine Watch Shadow Pines HOA linked to corporate buyout scheme exclusive documents. Reveal national land grab strategy. It had everything. The opt-out scripts, the shady payment trail, the Clearview Capital watermark, the list of targeted properties including mine. The headline hit like a sledgehammer. By 10 a.m., local news picked it up. By noon, I got a call from a Houston radio station asking for an interview. Margot, she vanished. No response, no post, no quotes. She went quiet, which for her was like a shark going still, not gone, just deeper. Then came the package. Brown envelope. No stamp, no name. Inside, a photo of me standing in my yard. A printout of Clara's obituary with her name circled in red. One note. You think you're smart. Let's see how smart you are without your tomatoes. Low blow, wrong move. I didn't call the cops, didn't cry on social media. I called Hank. I need Nightcamp's motion sensors and something loud enough to piss off a coyote. You expecting trouble? No, I said. I'm inviting it. That night, I sat out back in a folding chair with my old .38 in my lap, and Clara's old playlist humming low from the porch speakers. Didn't sleep, didn't move, didn't blink when a car drove by slow and turned off its lights. Just stared back. By morning, word had spread. 3 more neighbors came forward with stories similar pressure, sudden offers disappearing violations once they sold. Tasha compiled it all into a second report, this time with timelines. The word racketeering finally showed up in a headline. Then Margot resurfaced, and she didn't come back with a statement. She came back with a lawsuit. Defamation, harassment, cyberbullying. Filed it that Friday. Served me during breakfast. The process server even apologized. I read the story, he said. If it means anything, I think you're the good guy. It does, I said. Now get the fuck off my porch. I read the suit. It was laughable, 28 pages of word salad and selective memory. She accused me of radicalizing the neighborhood and weaponizing grief. That last one hit, right in the ribs. But you know what? If grief is a weapon, then fine. Let me sharpen it. You ever feel the tension in a room before the fight starts? Like the air thickens, doors creak slower, and even the birds shut the hell up. That was Shadow Pines the week after Margot got exposed. I expected backlash. What I didn't expect was a goddamn gala. She didn't go on Facebook. Didn't post a rebuttal. Didn't threaten me online. She threw a fucking event. Flyers printed on faux linen paper like some homeowner Hunger Games. Shadow Pines Emergency Forum for Peace Truth and Unity Community Center, 7 p.m. Refreshments provided. There it was again. That word unity. Lady, you fined a veteran for flying a slightly faded flag. Spare me the peace talk. I got the flyer the same morning I got served. Yep. Margot filed a lawsuit. Defamation, incitement, reputational harm. All written in flowery legalese designed to make it sound like I'd burned down City Hall and pissed on the ashes. Classic move. The suit wasn't meant to win. It was meant to exhaust me. Make me spend time, money, and sanity defending myself while she tried to flip the narrative. I considered not showing up to the meeting. But if I didn't, she'd spin that too. He's hiding. Coward. Guilt. Nah, I don't run. I show up, and I bring friends. Leela brought the projector. Hank brought attitude. I brought documents, timelines, and a tie Clara picked out the day we bought the house. The community center was packed. Over 100 bodies stuffed shoulder to shoulder, buzzing like mosquitoes before a storm. And Margot, she arrived 10 minutes late with a fresh blowout and that smug half-smile people wear when they think they've already won. Good evening, everyone, she purred into the mic. Thank you for coming to this important moment of healing and clarity. Healing. This wasn't therapy. This was a pre-funeral viewing, and I was the guy laid out in the casket. There has been noise, misinformation. A surge of panic stirred by individuals who may not understand the weight of their actions. She didn't say my name. She didn't need to. Tonight is about recentering, about trust, about reaffirming our values. Every word had that Stepford wife glaze on it like a PR firm had injected Xanax straight into her neck. Then came the real move. She held up a folder. These are signed letters from residents expressing concern, fear even, about one individual who's created tension in our neighborhood. A low murmur swept the room. In light of these ongoing disruptions and in accordance with our emergency provisions, I am proposing the temporary suspension of this individual's HOA voting rights event access and community privileges, pending litigation. And there it was, the real goal: shut me up, lock me out, make the rest of them afraid to be next. I stood, not in a rage, calm, cold. The room tilted slightly like gravity had shifted. My name is Ray Coleman, I said, and I'm not here to restore order. I'm here to burn bullshit by the bundle. Leela dimmed the lights. The projector whirred to life. The projector hummed. The first slide hit the wall like a hammer to porcelain. Documented timeline of targeted violations and property acquisitions columns. Dates, property addresses, sale values. Some folks squinted. Others leaned forward like it was the first real thing they'd seen all year. The HOA issued over 75 citations in a 6-month window, I began. And of those, 29 homeowners sold their properties within 60 days of receiving their last notice. Guess who bought those houses? A real estate firm tied to a board-approved partner, Clearview Capital Partners. A quiet gasp rippled through the room. Not loud, but real. Margot didn't flinch. She just crossed her arms and waited. Slide 2, a screenshot of the opt-out scripts. This is how they trained the enforcers. These weren't warnings, they were weapons. Slide 3, maps, color-coded, target areas, future development zones. Slide 4, a list of payouts to HOA board members masked as consulting fees. People started whispering names. That's when she interrupted. Not Margot. Linda Perot, former neighbor, PTA queen, the type who made organic jam for Christmas and believed in neighborhood harmony. I'm sorry, she said, standing up like she was defending a damn gospel, but are we really doing this? Turning a community meeting into a courtroom, these are just documents. They don't prove intent. They prove a pattern, I said. No, they prove you have time, that you've been digging. But correlation isn't guilt, Ray. You of all people should know that. That stung. She used to bring Clara soup when she was sick. Now she was throwing legal lectures like a judge at a talent show. Margot didn't even have to speak. She let Linda do the damage. Clever. Some of us just want peace, Linda continued. We don't want this war mentality. Not everyone agrees with you, Ray. You're right, I said. But some people don't have the luxury of ignoring what's being done to them quietly. No one's doing anything quietly. Really, then why are there secret meetings, unrecorded votes, and developer contracts buried under community initiatives? Linda shook her head and sat back down, but not before giving Margot a tight little nod. That's when I saw it. This wasn't about HOA, this was tribal. Us versus them. Old blood versus new money. Silence versus truth. Margot stepped forward like she'd just been handed the mic at her own rally. We appreciate Mr. Coleman's enthusiasm, but let's remember he is under active litigation. He is, as of this moment, no longer a voting member. This is a forum, not a deposition. The audience shifted. Some nodded, some frowned. Some stared at me like I was the town drunk, ranting about aliens in the grocery store parking lot. Then I felt it. The turn. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to question what I'd shown. Enough to wonder if maybe I'd gone too far. Margot saw it too. She smiled. Just a flicker, but it was there. That was the moment I realized I'd won the argument. But she was trying to win the audience, and sometimes that's the real war. After the meeting, people trickled out like they were leaving a funeral they weren't sure they were supposed to cry at. Some looked at me with quiet nod solidarity. Others avoided eye contact altogether. That's what Margot wanted. Not applause, uncertainty. She didn't need them to love her. She just needed them to doubt me. And god damn if it didn't work a little. Leela met me by the vending machine. Her jaw was tight. That Linda speech was planted, yeah, I said, and rehearsed. She used to bring you cornbread, people change. No, Leela said. People get offered something. That night, while the HOA's Facebook group buzzed with vague, "We support our community" posts and passive-aggressive comments about negativity, I got a ping from Hank. She's moving money. Attached was a PDF, a skimmed report from a property accountant Hank knew. Margot had recently moved HOA reserve funds around $87,000 into a temporary escrow holding for a nonprofit called Willow Creek Futures. I'd never heard of it until I Googled it. 3 board members, Margot Haynes, Rick Vaughn, and one Derek Lang, the acquisition specialist from Clearview Capital. The same one who made cash offers to my neighbors like he was buying goddamn cattle. It wasn't a nonprofit, it was a laundering pit dressed like a scholarship fund. They used community improvement language as cover for channeling HOA money into land speculation and legal buffers. If that wasn't fraud, it was the next worst thing manipulation that smelled legal. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was a forwarded email someone slipped into my inbox from a burner account. Subject line, Coleman issue. Phase 2. If the current narrative holds, we'll need to shift from public strategy to private pressure. He's widowed, no kids. Little social support, push the isolation narrative. Introduce questions about mental health if necessary, no signature. But the IP trace, thanks to Hank's old IT guy, pinged back to a Clearview office in Dallas. They weren't just trying to beat me, they were trying to erase me. I stared at the screen for a long time, felt my heart thudding like a slow, steady drumbeat before hanging. And I heard Clara's voice in the back of my head. When they come for your name, they've already lost the argument. So I did what any tired old man with a house full of documents and a war to fight would do. I started building a timeline for the district attorney. Every dollar, every file, every fake signature and shady vote. Because I wasn't going to scream anymore, I was going to prosecute. It started with the roses. Clara's roses. 15 years of trimming, fertilizing, weeding, the only thing I still kept alive because she loved how they framed the porch like we lived in a fairy tale. And one morning, they were dead, every last one of them. Dug-out roots exposed, not stomped. Surgically removed. Someone had come in the night, pulled them from the soil, and left them in a neat pile beside the fence like a fucking trophy. I stood there for maybe an hour. No rage, no shouting, just the slow creep of something worse than anger loss all over again. Like they hadn't just killed flowers, they'd killed a connection, one of the last. Hank arrived 10 minutes after I called. Didn't say anything at first, just looked at the dirt, shook his head, and muttered, "That's war-level precision. Someone paid for this." He walked the perimeter, found tire marks, a broken piece of latex glove. They knew where the cameras were, he said. Went around them. That means inside info. You thinking Margot? I'm thinking someone close to her. Maybe someone scared she's going to lose in W. That afternoon, I drove to the sheriff's station. Filed a report. Poi Sheriff Tom looked tired. "Ray, I gotta be honest. You're poking a nest here. This ain't just HOA drama anymore." Never was. "Yeah, but people are getting nervous. That developer lawyer Rick Vaughn just filed a restaurant for what he says you're stalking him." "Filming." Mac, I laughed. Then I stopped. "Because he wasn't, Jim." "It'll hold for 10 days, Tom added. "You violate it once, even by accident, it'll stick." That night, the lights in my backyard flickered, then died. Breaker had been pulled and spray painted across the fuse box, "Get out." Leela brought coffee. "I'm staying here tonight. You don't have to shut up." We sat on the porch watching wind roll over the empty garden beds where Clara's roses used. "This ain't about land anymore," she said. "It is," I said. "But now it's also about punishment." "You think they're trying to scare you off?" "No," I said. "I think they're trying to make me crack. So when I go down, I look crazy." Later that day, Tasha from Pine Watch texted you sitting down. She'd been digging into the nonprofit. Turns out, Clearview and Willow Creek Futures weren't just shady, they were actively lobbying for zoning changes. The kind of changes that would allow multi-unit developments on former single-family lots, strip certain older homeowners of renovation privileges, and most importantly, reduce property buyout waiting periods after abandonment. In plain English, if they could declare a house unmaintained or vacant for 30 days, they could force a sale at a board-determined price. Guess whose property had been cited for visible neglect in an anonymous complaint that week? Mine. "They're laying the groundwork," Tasha said. "They want your ranch. Full stop. They're gonna have to take it over my dead body." "That's what worries me," she replied. At 2 a.m., the back gate opened. Motion sensor lights clicked on the new ones Hank installed, and the footage 2 men in hoodies, one with a gas can. They didn't light anything, just poured, just sent a message. The next morning, Sheriff Tom was back on my porch, hat in hand. "Ray, you need to escalate this legally. That's what I've been doing." "No, I mean federally." He handed me a card. FBI Field Office, Property Crimes Division. "Someone's funding this, coordinating it. It's not just Margot anymore, never was," I muttered. "And Ray, be careful who you trust. I don't think they're done. I think they're just getting reckless." He was right. That night, someone dumped a stack of fake HOA violation letters in every mailbox on the street. All signed, all backdated, all citing me as the reason for community decay. It was working. The whispers, the tension. People who once smiled at me now looked away, like I was radioactive, like Clara's porch was cursed ground. Leela stood by the window, arms crossed. "You sure you want to keep pushing?" "No," I said. "I want to burn the whole fucking system down. Then let's start with Margot's money man." She tossed me a folder. Inside, wire transfers, developer emails, and a name I hadn't seen before. Senator Elaine Durant, District 7, one of Clearview's quiet backers. She wasn't just a donor. She was also the one pushing the zoning bills in the state legislature. That night, I wrote one sentence in my notebook under the words, "Next target, follow the zoning." That's where the power lives. You ever feel that moment before the snap? Not the sound, the tension, like the air gets heavier, like the world's holding its breath. That was me standing in my kitchen staring at the wall where Clara used to hang her grocery list. I hadn't touched it in over a year. Now it had a red X spray painted over it. They'd been in my house. No broken windows, no tripped alarms. But my drawers had been searched. Just enough to tell me they could. Just enough to say you're not safe anywhere anymore. That's when I stopped being angry. I got cold. The next morning, I walked into the FBI field office with a folder full of evidence and a voice that didn't shake. Name Ray Coleman. Nature of complaint. Organized fraud, property coercion, RICO-level shit. You have supporting documents. I brought a goddamn library. Agent Wren took the meeting, mid-40s. Blazer. Eyes like she'd seen every trick in the book and was waiting for me to show her a new one. She didn't interrupt, didn't blink, just nodded through the documents, the timelines, the maps, the burner emails. Then she asked one question. Why now? I stared at her. Because they went after my wife's roses, and now I want blood. She smiled. Just a flicker. We'll be in touch. Meanwhile, Margot and Clearview were already on the counterattack. That week alone. A website popped up, shadowtruth.info, claiming I was emotionally unstable, possibly armed, and hostile to diversity. Someone created a fake email account pretending to be me sending threatening messages to local board members. And worst of all, Clara's name was posted. On forums, in Facebook groups. His wife died, he's never recovered. Maybe it's time someone helped him get the care he needs. They weren't just trying to ruin me. They were trying to erase who I'd been. Leela was the first to get hit next. Her cafe got a health inspection surprise. Failed it too. Temporary closure for improper labeling. She called me from her car, voice shaking. Ray, they went through my storage room. They took my laptop. Did they have a warrant? They had badges? I didn't ask what kind, Jesus. I'll reopen, I always do. But Ray, this is war now. It was always war. We just stopped pretending. The next casualty was Hank. Not physically, but his name was leaked in a fake article about vigilante intimidation. Photos of him holding a rifle at a legal range were cropped to look like he was patrolling our streets. One of his old employers dropped him from a private contract. And then silence. No emails, no knocks, no letters, no noise. The kind of quiet that isn't peace. The kind of quiet that means they're planning something. That night, I checked the footage from the motion-activated cams around the ranch. One of them had gone dark for exactly 8 minutes the night before. When it came back on, my front gate was open, then closed. I hadn't opened it. Tasha went missing the next morning. Didn't show up for work. Didn't answer calls. Last message she sent me was just a link. No context. The link led to a zip file titled Insurance Policy. Open if I disappear. Inside every document she'd compiled. All her notes, audio files, screenshots of her chats with former HOA board members, some who'd been paid off, some who were scared shitless, and one folder labeled Durant Black Budget. The Durant folder was explosive. Payments, shell companies, photos of Margot with Senator Durant at a fundraiser labeled as a community development briefing, and one contract. A $2.3 million redevelopment bid contingent on Nopine. At least 12 properties turned over under market value. HOA silence on rezoning. No public dissent from known community leaders. My name was on that last list, underlined. Next to its status, non-compliant, escalation authorized. I printed every file, put them in a fireproof box in Clara's sewing room, made 3 copies, one for the FBI, one for my lawyer, and one I planned to deliver by hand to the local news station. But before I could leave the house that day, I found something nailed to my front door. A dead crow, tied to a piece of fence wood, painted red with the words "Tick-Tock Ray." That night, I didn't sleep, didn't pace, didn't plan. I just stared at Clara's old photo, trying to remember the way she used to say my name when she was proud of me. And I whispered back, I'm gonna finish this. For you. For everyone. 3 days. That's how long I had before the special emergency vote Margot scheduled. supposedly to determine community confidence in HOA leadership. In reality, a fast-track referendum to have me permanently banned from all community meetings communications, and if they could swing it, HOA-covered services. Garbage pickup, water lines, mailbox access. They were trying to blacklist me from my own goddamn street. I knew what I had to do. Not leak a memo, not drop another blog post. No, I needed to go nuclear public. Live, undeniable. Leela called in a favor from an old journalism student now working for Channel 14 News. We set it up fast. Public town hall. Local press invited lunch. Live stream through the cafe's Wi-Fi. Free lemonade to keep the neighbors civil. I wasn't going to just present my evidence. I was going to cross-examine the entire HOA in front of their voters. Then the night before the event, someone lit a fire in my barn. Didn't burn much, some hay, one of Clara's old rocking chairs. But the intent was clear. They were done with warnings. They were ready for ashes. The town hall was held in the community center. Same place where Margot once tried to crucify me with a folder full of gossip and forced smiles. This time it was different. The room was packed, standing room only. Phones out, cameras rolling. Even the sheriff showed up. Quiet. Watching. And when I stepped up to the mic, I didn't feel fear. I felt the weight of Clara's hand on my shoulder. Some of you know me, I started. Some of you think you know me because someone told you who I was. So let me clear that up. Slide 1, HOA fine patterns. Slide 2, property flips. Slide 3, developer connections. Slide 4, Senator Durant's involvement. Slide 5, the crow. The threats, the fire. This isn't just a community dispute, it's an orchestrated campaign. One that targets the elderly, the vulnerable, the alone. It uses fear dressed as policy and silence disguised as order. Margot didn't speak for a full 30 minutes. Then when I opened the floor for questions, she stood. Hair perfect. Blouse ironed to hell. But the eyes, those eyes were fraying at the edges. Mr. Coleman, she said, smiling like a predator. Are we supposed to take legal advice from someone who's being sued by 3 entities and is currently under restraining orders in 2 counties? The crowd murmured. I didn't flinch. You can take it from me, I said. Or from this. I played the audio clip, the one from the Clearview call. Margot's voice. Candid. Cold. Unedited. We don't need him to quit. We just need him to break. Quiet people sell fast. Silence. Then shouting, from her own side. The next 10 minutes were pure chaos. Half the board stood up and walked out. Howard Vance, Margot's bulldog since day one, took the mic and admitted he'd been paid to push residents to amicable exits. Someone in the back yelled, "You ruined my dad's last year of life, you sick." Bitch! Sheriff Tom stepped in to calm the room, and that's when it happened. Tasha walked in, still alive, still fire-eyed, and carrying a folder that would end everything. Inside, a notarized affidavit from a former Clearview employee, a subpoena-ready copy of the HOA's secret budget, and the smoking gun emails between Margot and Senator Durant's office, detailing community destabilization as a development strategy. You could hear necks snapping toward the screen as we projected them live. Margot just stood there blinking, then turned and walked out. Didn't say a word. The vote was canceled. The HOA was disbanded pending investigation. Margot was arrested 3 days later. Rick Vaughn disappeared. Rumor says he left the state. Senator Durant was subpoenaed in a federal zoning ethics probe, and I planted new roses. Same spot, different soil. It didn't end with handcuffs. It didn't end with some grand parade or televised apology. It ended with a walk through a half-dead garden and the realization that justice is never loud. It just lingers like smoke after rain. The HOA was dissolved. Margot pled out fraud, conspiracy, misuse of community funds. She got 2 years, no jail time, probation, fines. Not enough, but enough for people to remember. Senator Durant never admitted wrongdoing. but her zoning bill died in committee and Clearview pulled out of Texas 6 weeks later. They called it strategic redirection. I call it running like hell. The ranch stayed mine. The roses, I replanted them. Didn't think they'd take, but goddamn if they didn't bloom like Clara herself whispered them back to life. I built a new fence. Same hands, same spot. But this time, I didn't measure every inch. Didn't care if it was compliant. I built it because I could. The neighbors changed after that. More quiet waves. More porch lights at night. One guy, Tim, from 2 streets over brought me a 6-pack and said, "I thought you were crazy." Then I realized you were just first. Leela reopened the cafe. Painted a mural out back. It said, "Speak loud, stand firm." Tasha went full-time investigative. Wrote a long-form series called The War for Shadow Pines. She mailed me the first copy. Inside the cover she wrote, "You made them bleed ink, Ray. That's more than most ever do." I still get letters sometimes. People asking how I kept going, asking if it was worth it, and I always write the same thing. There's no glory in being the last line. Just grit. And you don't do it for praise. You do it because no one else will. Clara's desk sits by the window now. I don't pile documents on it anymore. Just one thing. A notebook. Half full. Notes about laws, land, people. And a page at the back where I wrote, "If it starts with a fence, it ends with a choice. Do you stay silent, or do you dig your heels into the dirt and say, 'Not today, not this time'?" That's what I did. That's what I'll keep doing, because some roots run too deep to be pulled. Not by fines, not by fear, not by fire.